Hi, everyone, and welcome to the How to Publish a Book and Make a Fortune webinar. My name is Max Fortune, and I will be your host for this information-packed webinar. Now, I've written 3 books personally, and my first book was published in 2008. It was called Success, the Blueprint to Achieving Your Dreams and Goals, a book that can truly help you achieve any dream or goal that you're aspiring to reach. My second book was published in 2015 and is entitled Get Rich in Your Niche. It's a book written for small business owners who want to learn how to do target marketing in their industry. My latest book that will be coming out in a few months is aptly titled How to Publish a Book and Make a Fortune. I know what it's like to want to write a book and not know what to write about, where to start, or even be concerned with what I didn't know about publishing a book. Now, I've created an incredible system that allowed me to write my last 2 books in less than 30 days. I have a proven system that truly works, and I'm going to be unveiling a lot of it for you today. Now, I will tell you, success usually comes down to time or money. Now, my system will save you a ton of time and will show you how to find the money you need. I have helped numerous aspiring authors to go from wanting to write a book someday to actually getting their book written and published. I could tell you right now, it's nothing like holding your own book in your hands. It's like holding your firstborn baby. For those of you who have kids out there, it is a wonderful experience that you just have to experience for yourself. Now, this webinar is definitely not going to be for everyone. So I want to tell you right now that if you're the type that doesn't take action, then this isn't going to be for you. If you're not going to follow through with what you learn, this definitely is not going to be for you. Now, if you want to finally write your book but aren't willing to put in the time it's going to take, then it's definitely not for you. And you know what? That's okay, because I know that this is not going to be for everyone. But if you are ready to finally experience the transformation of your life that getting your book published can help you achieve, then this is definitely for you. Now, I hope you have pens, paper, and or laptops ready for all the good information you'll be getting today. And for the next 90 minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you many aspects on how to write a book and make a fortune. Now, whether this book is for you or you have already written a book before, you are guaranteed to get some dynamite information that will help you with your next book become very successful. Now, this is definitely not one of those get rich quick schemes. We're not going to go over a bunch of things that just help you get rich. This is definitely not going to be one of those webinars we're going to tell you how to do nothing and get paid. You definitely have to put some work involved, and you're definitely not going to get any fake experts giving you information that this doesn't hold true. So right now, I wanted to clear any distractions right now. Shut off your TV, your cell phones, get your kids and pets settled so that you can take advantage of all that we're going to cover today. So let's go over what we're going to be covering. And we're going to be covering today how to plan your book, which is going to be what to write about, how to find your passion, what problems you can solve with your book, and who is your ideal prospect, and what is the business around your book. We're also going to be talking about how to write your book, which is going to cover how to write it in 90 days, how to outline your book, how to organize your topics, and how to set realistic deadlines. We're also going to go over how to publish your book. It's going to cover how to write a catchy title, how to create an amazing book cover, 4 main types of editing, how to typeset your book, and how to price your book. We're also going to cover how to pay for your book, which is going to cover crowdfunding, selling ads in your book, feature profiles and bonus chapters, along with sponsorships. We're also going to cover how to market your book. We're going to talk about how to write a press release, social media marketing, pitching TV and radio stations, speaking engagements, and how to create a business around your book. We're also going to cover hiring a publicist, email marketing, and so much more. Now, we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Now, like most aspiring authors, when I was writing my first book, there were so many challenges that I had to deal with. I had to figure out what to write about. I really didn't know at the time what my subject matter was going to be, how to start it, how to get my thoughts organized, what was the best time to write my book, how to stay disciplined. And you know what? I mostly struggle with not having a plan altogether. I lost so much time trying to figure out how to approach writing my first book. When I finally got an outline, I walked around with it for 5 years, waiting for the time to appear to write it. And of course, that just never happened. I tell you, I wasted so much time simply because I just really didn't have a plan or a guide when it came to writing my first book. Now, that's when I discovered that I had to make a decision, and I had to just decide to start writing every day. At the time I started writing my first book, I was a single dad, and I was also a business owner running a very successful document preparation company, which I'll talk to you about later. Now, I discovered that if I took my outline and just wrote on 1 to 2 topics a day for an hour or so, I could chip away at it. I always say it was like writing a book is like eating an elephant. You just have to work on it one piece at a time. Every morning for me, this is actually the actual truck that I sat in every morning from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. I would write in my truck behind the bowling alley up the street from where I lived. Now, it was someplace different for me with no distractions. I know it may sound funny to write a book in the back of a truck, but so you got to find your own place, a place that's separate and apart from where you do other activities, just so you can stay focused and know that it's a place for you to do writing. Now, that was an important step that I took, and it took me 90 days once I decided to focus on it, to actually write my book after 5 years of walking around with it. Once I made a commitment, and again, that's just what you have to do. You have to decide that the time is now for your book. You know, I'll tell you that you'll never know the lives your books will touch or change. You just have to write it. Now, I knew that I didn't want my children to grow up poor like I did. My mom did her very best. She had 8 kids and did her very best, like I said, as a single mom. She was a nurse and did everything she could to take care of us as children. My father wasn't in the picture. He actually was incarcerated for most of my childhood and actually eventually died there. And so it was definitely a struggle as a kid growing up. And I grew up in a rough area like you're seeing on the screen in East Baltimore. We actually were the family that got the Thanksgiving and Christmas baskets. Again, the canned goods that other families usually collected usually came to us, several years. And so like I said, growing up was really, really tough for me. Interestingly enough, I have these shoes on here. They kind of remind me of these actually are nicer than the shoes that we got. I remember that Montgomery Wards back in the day was doing a shoe drive for inner city kids, and they actually were giving us Skips. These are Wilson shoes on these. Look a lot nicer than Skips. They had a big white S on the side. And I'll never forget that day because I remember they called all the kids that, were going to get these free shoes. They called us over the intercom, which was super embarrassing. And we had to all come down to the office, got on these big cheese buses, drove to Montgomery Wards. And when I got there were like mounds of shoes. And you had to go find a pair of shoes that fit you and then get back in line. And then they got us back to school. And I'll tell you, every day that I wore those Skips to school, I got teased so badly, I'll never forget it. So that story just came to my mind as I was thinking about and it also reminded me of my very first pair of Adidas that I got where I grew up. Tennis shoes were a big thing, and my mom again was not able to buy all 8 of us designer tennis shoes. And I remember getting my first pair of shellhead Adidas like this, believe it or not, out of the trash in the neighborhood. Somebody had threw a pair of shoes away. And that's how I got my first pair of Adidas. So again, it doesn't matter where you are in life or where you start off in life. Any one of us can rise up here. And, my mom was very, very focused on education, and getting a good education was very, very important to her. And she made it very important for us. And I was fortunate and blessed to get a scholarship to Loyola High School, which is a private school out in Towson, Maryland. And again, that was a very big blessing for me. And honestly, I kind of went from one life to two different worlds, back and forth each and every day for those 4 years of high school. And I got to see how other people lived. And you know what? I was actually determined through it all to really give my kids every advantage that I could possibly give them from that standpoint. So again, it was just my growing up was so humbling, and being able to experience different things, it was just, like I said, really important. And so when I graduated from Loyola, I had started several businesses but most of them didn't make any money at all. But you know what? I was still determined to make it, so I kept trying my hand at any and every legal opportunity I could find. In March of 2002, I started a document preparation company part-time and was just able to see clients on the weekends. And after a couple of weekends, I realized I was making more money on the weekend than I was making all week on my job. So naturally, I quit my job and decided to work on my business full-time. It was very bold because I started with only $1,500, and $1,000 of it was from my last paycheck, and I actually had to borrow $500 from a close friend of mine at the time. And it was just enough for the security deposit, the first month's rent, and for some furniture. Not even great furniture, was the plastic kind of tables you get from Sam's Club. That's kind of how I started this business with the document prep company with. But after all the business that I started that didn't work out, for the first time, I created a very successful business that would take care of me and my family for the next 10 years. Now, by December of the very first year I stepped out, December of 2002, I made over $82,000, which at that time was the most money to date I had ever earned in 1 year. In 2003, my first full year in business, I made over $320,000. Since then, with that company, I made over $2 million with that doc prep company before selling it to move on to other ventures. Now, while I was running the doc prep company, that's when I wrote my first book, which I mentioned earlier. But actually at that time I was too busy between parenting and running that business to really market it the way I should. After selling that company, I came back to the business I love, which is writing books. And now I'm helping other people get their books done, and I get great immense pleasure out of doing that. Now, I share my story so that you can see that if I can do it, then you can too. That everyone has a challenge or something that they have to overcome, or there's some kind of adversity that you're going to have to deal with. And that's just life. It's just the way life goes. And I will say this, that I just know that with the proper plan, no matter what your past was, you can still change your future and the future of all the people your book will touch. So that's why you should write your book and definitely stay with it. Now, I've written 3 books, and I could tell you I definitely know what it's like to stumble around without having a plan for what you're going to write, what topic you're going to write about, staring at the computer, hoping something will come to you. You know, I used to do that all the time, just hoping something would come, just trying to figure it all out. Now, I also struggled trying to juggle family responsibilities, work, and personal life, all while trying to find time to write. And that can definitely be challenging for anybody. It took me a while to find the right formula. Now, I've spent the last 3 years compiling the best teachings and strategies into my latest book, How to Publish a Book and Make a Fortune. And you know what? I'm going to give you all of the information that I learned over those last 3 years so that you won't have to struggle like I did before I discovered these powerful techniques. Now, my last 2 books I wrote in less than 30 days. And I will tell you, I have a proven system that works. You just have to follow the system. I will tell you also that success comes down to time and or money. My system will save you time and show you how to find the money. I've helped numerous authors get their books published, and my system is sure to help you get your book published faster and quicker than you could have ever imagined. You just have to follow the plan. More than 81% of Americans feel that they have a book in them and that they should write it. Now, last year, approximately 400,000 plus books were self-published in the U.S. alone. Now, that can be encouraging or discouraging depending on your thinking. But one of the most important decisions is what to write your book about. Now, if you've not thought about that already, then it's definitely a good thing to think about. And what you should be thinking about is what is the difference between your passion book and your profit book. Your passion book is that book that, of what you absolutely love. And your profit book is that book that without a doubt will make you lots of money. And if you're lucky, they're one and the same. Your passion book could be your profit book. So again, we're going to talk about that later on in a few minutes. But again, hopefully that's definitely something you should be thinking about now, is what type of book will you write or should you write? Many people have thought about writing a book, and unfortunately for most people, it ends with just the thought of writing a book. I've written several books, and I can tell you that it takes a serious amount of conviction. Writing a book is not easy, but it's also not impossible either. And in order to write your book, you definitely have to be focused, determined, and committed. And surprisingly, with just an hour or so a day consistently, you can have your book finished in less than 90 days. I actually wrote my second book, Get Rich in Your Niche, in less than 30 days, so I know it can be done. Now, when it comes to writing nonfiction, the best method is to go with a subject you're very knowledgeable and are passionate about. This way, you'll be both engaging and authentic. And especially as a nonfiction author, people expect truth, either from your experience or knowledge. So you need to write with authority on your subject matter, something that you know a lot about. Now, your nonfiction book can help to position you as an expert in your field. It can open doors in your career, including speaking engagements, as well as gain you more clients. So choose a topic that you want to be associated with now and in the future, rather than something you did before that's no longer relevant. All right. If you're not passionate about what you write about, it'll be much harder for you to write your book. I can tell you that much. And one of your main goals should be to write something that you're very interested in. And when you're extremely interested in a particular topic of subject, you'll definitely tend to have some conviction and or passion about that. So how does one go about searching inside to find this passion? It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of work. But I could tell you it takes time to look within, and the deeper you dig, the greater the rewards will be. And in fact, the payoff can be tremendous. Along the way, you might learn some things about yourself that will open amazing new doors of possibility and discovery for your work and your life. I'll tell you, you have to be passionate about your subject to be able to write an entire book on it. You definitely have to believe in it. So let's go over some pointers for following your passion, some things you need to do. First thing is knowing yourself. And though it seems simple, you must understand what makes you tick, what motivates you, where you get your energy, how you perceive the world even. Understanding this about yourself helps you connect with your readers and with your characters. The second thing is defining your qualities. And you might have a general idea of your skills, value, and interests, but have you really dug deep enough to determine which of these are imperative in your life? Are you allowing your writing work to overwhelm other places to explore? And these places really could help you ultimately with your writing. The other thing, you also definitely want to determine the values that define you, the skills that you enjoy, and the interests that are fulfilling and fun, so you can be creative, expansive, and focused in your writing and in life. Now, the third thing is creating a vision. Once you've gotten to know yourself better and define what's important to you, begin to create a vision for your life and for your writing. And by outlining a rough vision based on your personality, values, skills, and interests, you'll begin to refine a purpose and a mission for your writing and for life. And really, any passionate endeavor bolstered by some purpose will have substance and longevity. The fourth thing is having a shift of your mind. And as you learn about yourself, you'll begin having profound aha moments, and previous ways of thinking will be challenged. And when it comes to writing your book, you definitely want to focus on what kind of need, desire, or problem you can actually solve with your book, or that your book can solve for other people. Basically, you want to know what's your appeal to people. And it's difficult to tempt people with what you have to offer unless you know exactly what it is that you're offering and why other people should care about it. So taking the time to discover your author brand, again, we talked about digging deep and defining your goals for writing in general is important. Why are you writing, and what's your central philosophy, and why is it important to share it? Remember to consider not just your book, but future works as well. Who do you need to reach with your book? Who are you trying to reach? And I will tell you, it's important to get to the nitty-gritty of determining and describing who you need to reach. Given what you have to offer, who would be the most interested and why? Who will benefit the most from your book? Recognizing that your book is not a must-read for every literate person on earth necessarily means you need to really narrow down your focus. The goal is to segment a broad market into smaller, distinct groups of individuals who are more like-minded or share specific characteristics, behaviors, and or needs. Let's go over why targeting an audience is really important. I'll tell you that one of the biggest mistakes writers make as fledgling authors is believing that the larger the potential market, the greater chances that their book or freelance services will get noticed. In fact, you know what? The opposite is often true. The larger the market, the more competition you're likely to face and the bigger drain on your resources. So trying to appeal to the masses instead of understanding the needs, wants, and desires of a select few, the right select few, is the recipe for a book launch flop. So finding and narrowing your niche will help you to reach and appeal to more of the people that you'll ultimately buy your book, or that will actually ultimately buy your book. And the key is really to identify and research what your true target audience craves, and recognizing the unique and meaningful aspects of what you have to offer, and align the two to benefit your ideal reader in an exceptional way. Now, I will tell you, it's very important to do your research before you write your book. Again, I said before you write your book. All too many authors write their book without defining the target audience, and defining your audience is particularly important when writing nonfiction, especially. Your target market consists of the people that you think your book will appeal to. And these are the people that actually will benefit the most from your book. For example, if you are writing a book about attracting more business, the motivations for people to buy your product will most likely be business owners and entrepreneurs. And, knowing exactly who you're writing this book for is very, very important. Will your book appeal to them, the people that you're writing for? And the way to figure that out is to answer these questions about your ideal reader. And one of those questions are, what are their hopes, fears, and dreams? What are the desires and motivations of your reader? What are their interests? Now, one of the things I talk to authors a lot about is, what is the business around your book? And I'll tell you, you will earn more money as an author if you brainstorm additional ways to build a business around your book. Now, if you want to earn a living as an author, you have to think beyond your book. Not only that, you have to think like a business owner when it comes to your book. You have to think like an entrepreneur. Now, whether you write fiction or nonfiction, just the fact that you're writing a book means you have what it takes to become an author/entrepreneur or a authorpreneur. Now, if you are an author and you're working to build your platform and secure more book sales, then guess what? You have a brand. And when you have a brand, you must have a content strategy in place so that you can stay top of mind. Ability to interact with your readers and continue building relationships with those who are discovering you online. So consider the different types of products or services you might want to offer that relate both to your books and to your expertise. So I'm actually going to go over a couple of different things that you can do to build a business around your book. And the first thing is doing teleseminars or webinars, kind of like the one you're on right now. And you can use these online teaching methods to reach potential readers, customers, and clients all over the world. And you can even charge people to attend, or you can offer them for free to build your mailing list and then sell the recordings from your website as products. The second thing you can do is you can do classes or courses, and you can actually offer to teach in person, or you also can teach online, again, expanding your reach. And once you have taught a series of classes online using teleseminars or webinar technology and recorded them, you can actually sell these as a home study program or as a pre-recorded class. The third thing you could do is you could do coaching or consulting services. Now, if you are an expert or authority on any topic, you can offer group coaching or one-on-one coaching. And many people call this their Rent My Brain service or mastermind group. The fourth thing you could do is membership sites. Now, private members only sites are one of the best ways to monetize an author's knowledge. And basically all you need is a blog and a plugin to make it work. And many of these plugins do work. Do they exist out there? So they're not very difficult to find. You just have to have a way to put your content behind closed doors so that only members who agree to pay a monthly or yearly fee can access it. The next method is doing speeches or talks. And depending upon your subject matter, you may be able to get a sizable paycheck to speak on your topic. And I'll tell you, many authors are speakers and spend a good bit of time over the road giving speeches. The next thing is doing short ebooks or white papers, guides, or reports. And if you're pretty much a fast writer, you can definitely churn out some short works, which are more and more popular these days, and even sell them on Amazon. They're going to help to build your brand and your expert status as well as your wallet. So you can even couple them with a teleseminar or a webinar to increase the price of those. So again, something else to think about. What you want to do is figure out what your community does and connect with those activities. What you want to do is see what those people do, where they do it, what they read and how they read it, what their biggest celebrations are, and so on. So how can you connect with them? Do they meet at rallies, or are you wear a certain kind of shoe, or do they drink Starbucks coffee? It's time to get creative and figure out how you can hitch your book wagon to their particular star. The idea really is to meet your community where it lives and reads, actually. So just make sure you consider yourself a business person. And if you only see yourself as a writer, you'll never be able to wrap your mind around being a business person. So, when it comes to writing a book, it can definitely be a very difficult and daunting task. And with the proper approach, though, you can actually go from just having a book idea in your head to having a book that's totally written by you. And your book could be published, marketed, and bringing in sales all within the next 90 days. And there are all types of books out there that are published every day. And as long as you have a niche or an audience that wants your book, you can definitely be a successful author. So I want you to keep in mind a few things that are important to that process of writing. And one of the things is enjoy the journey. If you're looking forward to writing, then you're more likely to do it. Make sure that you set aside a reasonable time frame. You got to work with what you have. Even if you only have 30 minutes a day to commit to your writing, use that 30 minutes and you'll be surprised how it adds up in the long run or down the road. You also want to learn about yourself, and you'll learn about yourself through this process. Now, if you're finding that you're constantly getting distracted from writing, and you may have to consider maybe you don't even want to write a book after all, or perhaps you need to evaluate whether your topic is engaging or exciting if you're not able to stay focused on it. So that's something else to think about when it comes to writing your book. One of the things I tell people all the time is focus on the finish. Even if you love what you're working on, there are going to be days that writing feels like it's a task and that you're never going to get it done. So when you focus on getting it finished, or the finish, or what you're going to do, it definitely helps you get through it. Also reading, in addition to writing, one of the best ways you can improve your craft is by always reading something and reading other people's works as well. Getting out and socializing is also important. Don't isolate yourself. If you're actually neglecting your craft when you do that, you definitely have to make sure you stay in touch with people in your circles. Also work daily, stay engaged with the world you've already created. The write or edit what you've written every day, and the more time you spend away from your writing, the harder it is to actually get back to it. So make sure you work on your writing every single day. Now, the other thing you definitely want to do when it comes to writing your book is eliminate as many distractions as you possibly can. As hard as that may be, it's definitely critical to shut your phone off or cut off your television. Don't have your social media notifications on. You just have to have your pen and paper or your laptop out. But it's very, very important to shut out and eliminate those distractions. And, one of the last things I'll talk about in here is really adjusting your expectations. I always say in order to avoid disappointment, you have to adjust your expectations. And again, you should definitely be you can't expect to master your craft in 1 month. So you definitely have to give yourself realistic expectations, especially if this is your first book. You want to give yourself time enough to do that, to get it done, and not put undue expectations on yourself. You also want to get feedback on what you're writing early and often. It's definitely important to share your work with other people and get their opinions on it. And again, you can definitely sometimes catch problems early when you do that. Also, think about answering, the most frequently asked questions on your topic. Let's say if it's a field like real estate, what questions do your clients frequently ask? And, if you really answer 10 to 30 of those questions, you have material to fill a book. And the other thing that's really important when it comes to writing is tell stories. There is truly nothing new under the sun, and meaning the topic that you're writing about has probably been written about, by many, many other people. So find a way that you can breathe fresh life into your topic. And a lot of that is by sharing your own personal stories. Also, repurposing content. If you think really hard, you probably have material that you can use that you've used before, and maybe you could find some of that material when it comes to writing your book. The last thing to add to this whole writing the book thing is, even adding jokes, or you have a story or a joke that, you tell to every client, that's also something good to put inside your book. Now, this is a very important segment that I cover in depth in my mastermind course, and it's outlining your book. It's really, really one of the most important things to getting your book done. And again, for those people who are going to take who have taken my mastermind course, they'll tell you that the outline template we use is very, very great for cutting down on writer's block. And the basic premise of it is especially for outlining a nonfiction book, is you break down your title or subject matter into 10 or 12 important points that you want to discuss. And actually, these 10 or 12 points will become your chapter titles. Then what you do is you break down each one of those 10 to 12 chapter titles. You'd actually come up with 10 or 12 talking points on each one of them. So you'll write down 10 bullet points for each one of your chapters. What you're going to end up with is about 100 to 120 bullet points or things that you want to talk about in your book. And then you're going to simply spend an hour or so a day writing on one or two of those bullet points each and every day. And you'll find yourself getting your book done. So the most important thing is you want to find the time to write, or to find the right time for you that works, and also finding the right place. You got to find a special place to do writing, someplace that you do only writing at. Like I talked about earlier, in my Jeep or the back of my truck is where I did my first book. Again, you just want to specify a special place, or a place that only you do for your writing at. I talk to people all the time about setting realistic goals or deadlines for your writing. And you've probably heard this acronym before, SMART, SMART. When applied to your book goals, the letters represent the characteristics of goals you'll actually reach. And they are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. That's what SMART stands for. And the S for specific, the more specific goals you have, the better. So whenever possible, answer the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how when defining your goals. And here's some examples of general writing goals that are made specific. And a broad goal would be writing every day. A specific goal would be, I'm going to write 15 minutes every day. Another broad goal might be to, write a chapter each week. And a specific goal might be, I'm going to complete one chapter of at least 3,000 words every week for 10 straight weeks. So that's a little bit more specific, and helps you stay focused. The M for measurable. Now, again, you have to have measurable goals. So instead of saying, I want to work on my book 3 times this week, make it more measurable. Like, I want to write 3 times this week and not stop until I've written 2,000 words each time. But it's got to be something you can measure. Also, actionable. Now, actionable goals can be as simple as adding a verb or action word to your goal. And think beyond the word write to other verbs. Finish my rough draft in 3 months, or quit editing as I write. Those are actionable goals, and they contain action, something you have to do or apply to reach your goal. The R stands for realistic, and that's very important. You definitely, especially if you're extremely busy, your realistic writing goals, maybe a paragraph each day or maybe a sentence each day. Once you reach that goal, it's easy to repeat because you can do it. You've been doing it before. So again, you just want to make sure your goals are definitely realistic. And the T for timely is, in order for a goal to be reached, it needs to have a time limit. So think of how you could set a time frame to your attainable, realistic writing goals. But make sure you choose wisely when you spend time writing, and make sure you give yourself a deadline to have your book done. And you should also set a time of when you'll finish each chapter. The last thing I definitely want you to focus on is writing. That you can have the best intentions in the world, and intentions don't mean anything without actions backing them up. So now you've created some goals and some priorities and calendars. The only thing left now is to sit down and actually write. And believe it or not, it's the hardest step. You just have to get started. Now that we've actually set some realistic goals for our writing and we're working on our writing, after you get that done, one of the most important things or elements that your book is going to need is a strong title. And so creating a catchy title is very, very important. So again, one of the most important elements of a book is a strong title. And it's like a newspaper headline. If prospective readers are intrigued, they keep on reading, and if they don't, they move on to the next book or blog post or whatever. So when it comes to a book, readers first look at the title of the book, then they look at the cover, they look at the back cover, table of contents, a couple of paragraphs of the book's content, and then the price. But the most important element of all that is the title. Now, your title definitely should do at least one of the following. It definitely needs to create intrigue, or it needs to identify a need, maybe make a promise, or really simply state what's in the book. And some quick suggestions are to mention, a number in your title that's really impactful a lot of times, like 7 easy ways to do blank blank, or 8 ways to prevent, this or that. I want you to keep in mind that most people base almost every buying decision on one of two things, and they are either to achieve pleasure or to avoid pain. And if your title shows them how they can achieve some type of pleasurable experience by reading your book, or actually how they can avoid suffering a painful mistake by buying your book, then you're well on your way to writing a book that will sell. And your title actually should set the expectations for the reader as to what to expect when they finish reading your book. The right angle can make you or break you. And so it's definitely worth spending some time and making sure you get it right. We are always taught to not judge a book by its cover, but we all do it. Creating an amazing book cover is really, really important. And your book cover should generate excitement or grab some kind of attention. The main goal of every book cover is really to generate excitement, and the cover is one of the best tools in your marketing arsenal. So that's why you definitely should create something that will stop people in their tracks and evoke some interest. And the book cover is really the hook. It's what will help you to promote your book. And so before you get started on providing ideas for a cover design, or before starting to design one yourself, you actually need to decide on what the message is that you want to send. You can ask yourself, what's this book's single-minded value proposition? What is the target audience of the readers looking for? Are they looking for inspiration, aspiration, success and achievement, knowledge and power, romance and passion, or murder and revenge? What are they looking for? Boiling it down to the motivation, the incentive, and emotion will help you generate, tons of ideas or visual metaphors that determine the imagery, the choice of color palettes, or the typography and the layout that really can help you capture what the book is all about. And also keep in mind that humans are visual creatures, so give careful consideration to the book's imagery. The cover is an important marketing tool, and you definitely do not want to leave the design to the last minute. And you also want to be bold. The design should draw people in, providing just enough intrigue that they just have to buy it now. The book cover is definitely where you want a professional working with you on it, and this is where you definitely want to spend some of your money. Your money should be well spent in this area. So in addition to creating an amazing cover, I'm going to talk about editing is really one of the essential parts of getting your book together. And for new authors, it's probably safe to assume that most aren't going to know that there are different editing levels, and that there are a lot of terms that, go to really even the same editing level. So what an editor usually does is they polish and refine, and they direct the focus of the story along a particular course. They usually work to cut out what doesn't fit, what's non-essential to the purpose of the story. So they work to enhance major points, drawing attention to places where the audience should focus on. So there are 4 main levels, and the first level is developmental editing. And that's where they work with clients and usually the author of a book or other document to develop, the manuscript from usually initial concept or outline or the draft. And what they also work to do is make suggestions about content, organization, presentation, and, really based on the analysis of competing works. They also work to do some rewriting or writing and researching as needed. And even sometimes making suggestions for topics or providing information about topics for consideration. The second form is substantive editing, and that's where usually they work on improving a manuscript by identifying and solving problems of clarity or accuracy, reorganizing paragraphs, sections, or chapters, usually doing writing or rewriting segments of text to make it more readable or flow. Also revising any and all aspects of the text to improve its overall presentation. The third one is called copy editing, and sometimes called line editing. And that really includes correcting spelling, grammar, punctuation, syntax, and word usage. Also checking for imposing a consistent style and format, really. Preparing a style sheet that documents usually a style and format for writing. They're also reading for overall clarity, make sure it's clear, and noting permissions needed to publish copyrighted materials. So they work on all of those things, even cross-checking references, things like that. And the fourth stage is proofreading, where they're usually comparing the latest stage of text with the preceding stage, marking discrepancies between the two, and even sometimes involving checking for problems in page makeup, layouts, or also what they do is they check the proof against typesetting specifications, or sometimes correcting errors or inconsistencies that may have escaped, a former editor or writer, and also reading for typographical errors. So those are the four main types of editing. So what is typesetting? And typesetting is usually all about the creating a seamless reading experience for your readers. And of course, it's hard for an author, publisher, even a reader sometimes to perceive a typesetter's work, but that's actually the point. Type is really not meant to be noticed. It's meant to usually be subliminally enhance the reader's experience and really even kind of create a subconscious atmosphere for the story. And so what a typesetter does is they find and choose the right type or font for your story. They usually can style chapter headings and drop caps and decide the margins and the spacing. And they really are usually very conscious decisions that need to be made by a professional who really understands the rules of typesetting and also has enough experience to know how books in your genre are typically designed. Now, when it comes to pricing your book, I will tell you that setting the right retail price usually involves many, many factors, and but how you price your book ultimately is your decision. And here's, just a couple of things that you need or that you should think about when it comes to setting a competitive price for your book and still making a profit. So one of the first things I'll definitely suggest is you do some research before you set your own retail price. See what other comparable books are on. I know that I did that with my first books. I just went to the library and looked at what other books, or really the bookstore rather, and looked at what other people were selling similar books and like mine, what they were charging, and that's how I kind of came up with the price for my books. You also want to factor in your printing costs. So you always want to factor in how much it costs you to print your book when it comes to setting a price for your book. Also, for when it comes to nonfiction books, for a book that contains a fair amount of research or statistics or endnotes, charts and graphs, usually, it's a little bit reasonable to price a little bit higher for those kinds of books. And for fiction, usually, based on the page count, what comes into play is usually if your book is about 375 pages or so, it's reasonable to ask about $16.95 for it. And most average size trade paperbacks usually fall between the price of $13.95 and $17.95 rather. And so you always want to do your research into comparable books and price your book accordingly. Keep in mind that, an overly inflated price will cause you to lose your competitive edge way before your book even researches or reaches a retailer. So you definitely want to take in mind the price of your book and look into all those things before you determine your final price of your book. We talked a lot about putting your book together and all the things that you need to get it together. So, hey, and how do you actually pay for that book once you've got everything together? Let's talk about how you can do that. And there's always the decision to save up your own hard-earned money to pay for the publishing of your book, especially if you believe strongly in your ability to sell your book, where it's worthwhile. It's definitely a worthwhile investment in yourself. So let's also discuss some ways you can get your book self-published and not pay a penny out of your own pocket. So let's talk about crowdfunding. And you may have heard the term crowdfunding, but may not be sure what it's all about. Now, crowdfunding is a way that artists and entrepreneurs are raising funds for their projects so that they can take on less of the financial risk. And with a successful crowdfunding campaign, you can raise money before you even publish. And rather than paying money out of your pocket, you have the money up front. And so crowdfunding sites provide writers with the technology and the platform to reach out to personal and professional networks and ask them to financially back the publishing efforts of getting your book done. In exchange for their financial support, they usually will receive some kind of reward from you based on monetary levels that you set before the launch of the campaign. And keep in mind, crowdfunding really can be a great tool for self-publishers. It's really the equivalent of getting an advance from a traditional publisher. In a sense, since on the publisher side, it's really a handy way to get pre-orders and acquire funds for paying for services up front. And readers usually love directly participating in the creation of a book. So I do want to strongly recommend GoFundMyBook has a crowdfunding platform for raising money exclusively for authors. So some of the other platforms raise money for different sources. GoFundMyBook.com is just for authors who want to raise money for their books. The other thing we're talking about is selling ads in your book. And you can sell ad space in the back of your book. It's definitely another potential way to offset the cost of self-publishing your book. And it's not terribly difficult, but usually will require a little bit of planning and some gumption on your part, and really selling ads in your book by creating really 10 categories of businesses that would be good candidates and or a good match for your book. And usually after you create those 10 categories of businesses, you can take it a step further and list 10 businesses that you can contact in each one of those categories. And you'll usually end up with a list of over 100 prospects to sell ads to. And be honest with you, chances are you're probably only going to need a handful of those to cover the cost of producing your initial run of your books. Now, you can decide to approach a business or a person that may be relevant to the subject matter of your book for a feature profile. And if positioned properly, you can actually have that person pay you to have this profile in your book. So this can help with some of your out-of-pocket costs, especially if you're self-publishing your book. So a feature profile is a real credibility booster for whomever you decide to feature in your book. And you can really arrange for them to prepay a certain amount of your printed books instead of just asking for money. This way, they also get something tangible in their hands that they could possibly sell to their customers and recoup their fee, or they could simply use the book as a giveaway to their customers in an effort to increase their business. And this is actually a true win-win scenario for you as an author and the person you decide to feature in your book. So getting sponsors to pay for your book. This is one of my favorite things to talk to authors about. And you really will primarily use a sponsorship proposal to attract sponsors who will partially or entirely even offset the financial investment in your book. And typically, 5 to 12 sponsors will offset the majority of your initial publishing expenses, sometimes even one, depending on how much you're printing in the onset. And why would somebody want to sponsor a book or be a sponsor in the book? Just think about it. When was the last time you or anybody else threw a book away? People just never throw books away. It's very rarely. So somebody having an ad in your book, it's an ad that will last a lifetime, have a long shelf life. Also, with endorsements, author endorsements, that's also an important part of this whole process. And giving even a sponsor exclusivity in your book is, again, another way of attracting a sponsor and why they would want to be in your book. And if it's positioned right, that sponsor is actually getting in front of pre-qualified leads. So only people who would be of the same service would be the same people who are actually buying that book. And it's actually a credibility booster. And lastly, a sponsor for a sponsor, the cost, there are going to be very few times that they can lay out a set amount of money like this and have a really ad that could run a lifetime. So again, it's a very unique proposition. It's truly a win-win for both you as an author to offset your costs and for a sponsor to really have longevity in their marketing. So definitely do not overlook having someone sponsor your book. So now that we covered how to pay for your book, let's talk about how to market your book. Now, marketing usually isn't a skill that most authors have naturally, and there's really little formal training out there. And so the best time to design and implement your marketing plan of action is before you even start writing your book. And it takes time to build relationships, learn your readers' wants and your needs and their needs rather, and to develop a base of fans that are anxiously awaiting your book. That's really what you ultimately want to do. And the best thing to do is to grow your readership as you're writing your book. And when it's time to launch your book, you already have an invested and an eager audience waiting. So let's go over some tried and proven techniques to marketing. Okay, so let's talk about press releases. Now, what you should keep in mind is press releases are still viable. They're still useful for marketing your book. And the objective of a press release is really to get media attention and coverage, not to actually sell books. So you want to keep that in mind. And what you do press releases so the media will potentially review or discuss your book in their publication or on their channels. And ultimately, this coverage will drive sales of your book. When it comes to marketing your book, you definitely want to consider social media. And again, if you're wondering how to get people excited about your book, do you want people actively sharing your book with their friends? Social media is definitely the way to do that. And today authors have an amazing advantage. And not only are there millions of bloggers whose collective audience is larger and more engaged for that matter than that of traditional press, there are also millions of consumers who are out there that are only one click away from sharing your work with their friends on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So whether or not you use a publicist or not, I'll tell you that an experienced book publicist can be valuable, very valuable indeed. An effective partner, they can help to educate you and provide direction, increase your book's visibility. They could do a lot for helping you get your career off the ground. And you actually need to determine if the financial cost is worth the investment before you make the decision to hire a professional. But I can tell you, if you can afford one, I highly recommend it. Now, a good publicist can help you jumpstart your book career very, very quickly. But you want to keep in mind and make sure your publicist has verifiable references. And remember, all publicists are not alike, so choose one that suits your needs as an author. I get often asked about pitching TV and radio stations and what's the best way. So before you're going to do that, I always say, before you approach any television or radio producer, you definitely want to make sure you have a hook. And a hook is that something special that makes a producer want to book you above all the other people who are calling them. It's that special angle that separates you out from the rest. So sometimes it's your personal story. Sometimes it's a newsworthy event that's going on that puts you front and center because of your timely expertise. Sometimes, it's even a gimmick you can offer, a demonstration or free stuff or something inside that will make somebody thinner or prettier or live longer. A hook really is essential to getting a producer's attention. So you want to think like a producer. What will be of interest to their show's viewers? Do your homework. Make sure you watch or listen to their program and figure out what they like, and then make sure you give it to them. Check out the show credits, write down the names of the producers or associate producers and contact them directly. And mostly today you can send them email with an attention-grabbing subject line. You make sure you include your pitch information and attach a video of yourself, and make sure you follow it with a phone call, and then just continue to repeat that process. And just make sure if you do get a call or when you are talking to somebody, make sure you treat each call like it's an audition. So make sure you have lots of energy. Your personality is very vital. And if you have the credentials and the hook, but you're boring, you're definitely not going to get on the show. So keep that in mind. So an author's website really has a lofty goal. It needs to not just be out there. It needs to perform and respond. So no longer is it just a fancy, static online business card. It actually serves as an author's home base, a marketing and networking hub a portal really that allows communication to flow between the author and his or her readers. So it's very, very important. And visiting an author's website is really one of the leading ways that readers and supporters get to know their favorite authors better. So the stronger the relationship, the more likely your readers will spread the word about you to their friends, family, and peers. So as far as email marketing goes, I definitely recommend that you plan and execute at least one email promotion per month. That rate is not overwhelmingly time consuming for most self-published authors, but it gives your sales a regular boost. And over time, this will definitely help propel your titles into a higher sales category. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you are crafting your email promotion newsletters from a reader's point of view, and they'll continue to open and respond to your emails. So speaking engagements, and once you've done the hard work of writing and publishing your book, it's time to consider getting some speaking engagements so you can spread the word about your book's message. And as an author, it's highly possible you may even convince yourself that speaking in front of an audience simply isn't for you. But after all, you may be thinking you're a writer, not a speaker, but that's not exactly true. While the walls of publishing are coming down and there's never been a better time to become a published author, this means that there's an awful lot of competition out there. We talked about those 400,000 self-published books last year alone. So the authors who are willing to put themselves out there, whether in the form of speaking gigs, media, or other in-person appearances, they are the ones that are going to have the best chances of standing out from the crowd and grabbing the attention of book buyers. So take advantage of every opportunity that you can do to have or to do speaking engagements. Now, we just spent a few moments going over every aspect of what it takes to get your book published. And you know what? Even after all of that, there will be many people listening to this webinar and still will want to put off writing their book. Now, many of you will say, you know what? I don't know enough. Now, what I say to that is if you know more than the guy next to you or the girl next to you, you know enough to help them get started in pursuing their dreams. And that means you know enough to write a book. So you do not have to be an expert. You simply have to be more experienced than someone else. Other people will say, you know what, nobody wants to hear my story. And right now, I'll tell you, there's someone out there who faces struggles you've already overcome. They think that they're all alone out there and they carry the pain by themselves and feeling hopeless because it all seems so overwhelming to them. And they may be dealing with despair, thinking they'll never overcome it. Other people are thinking, you know what, I don't know how to get started. Getting started is as simple as writing a single sentence. Write one sentence that summarizes the story of, or the story, or gives people an idea of what they'll learn from your book, and you're starting the process. Many people would say I'm not good at writing. Well, the only way to get better at writing is to practice doing more of it. If grammar is a problem for you, there are plenty of places on the web that offer help and exercises, and if you practice even just 30 minutes a day, you'll find you are so much better at writing than you think. The other thing you could do is become a reader. Pick a book and read at least one chapter every day. Doesn't matter whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You'll really begin to absorb the ebb and flow of grammar and action. And also people with biggest excuses, I don't have time to write it. And I get that. You're busy. Everybody's busy. You have a life. We all do. The difference between you and the writer who gets a book on the shelf isn't the amount of time given to them. We all have the same 24-hour day. It's actually what they do with that time that made the difference. I understand procrastination, but again, you definitely want to not be one of those people that procrastinate. And just keep in mind that productivity is more about managing energy than managing time. I've created a 20-week training experience for you called Max Fortune's Mastermind Group, and I literally will be breaking down the complete book writing and marketing system and walk you through how to get your book written step by step by step. So everyone who's interested in having me walk you through every step of your book, I want you to type in the link on your screen right now into a new browser and fill in your information, and I'll be reaching out to you personally to start your book coaching program. Again, type in the link that you see on your screen right now, and I will be reaching out to you personally and individually, each and every person who signs up, and we're going to get your book coaching program started right away. Now, everything that we've gone through is just a sampling of what you're going to get if you decide to join the coaching program. And I'm going to tell you, you will definitely get step-by-step lessons on how to actually plan your book, how to write it, how to publish it, how to pay for it, and how to market it. So we kind of went over overview during this webinar, but we're going to go into in-depth detail, step by step, moment by moment, through every single thing. This is breaking down for you to where anybody can do this. Again, it's going to take you through week by week, so it's easy to get through each step, one step at a time. And again, we're going to cover a lot of amazing things through this coaching program. We're going to definitely show you the tricks that will help you to stay focused, determined, and committed when it comes to writing your book. You know, we're going to go over how to find the best topic for you to write about. We talked about that earlier, but we're definitely going to help you find that. And if you're not passionate about what you write about, as we talked about earlier, it will be much harder for you to write your book. So we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you how to write that book in 90 days or less. A portion of this program is just going to be 90 days focusing on the writing, but we're going to focus on some of the other things you have to do to plan it. And it really has a successful time with writing it. Again, we're going to go back over your goals, and we're going to set your goals individually as to what's realistic for you to accomplish and achieve. Also, the main reason you want to create a catchy title for your book, we're going to go over that. And really, having the right titles we talked about earlier is going to make a tremendous difference. And we'll be working with you personally. I'll be working with you personally to make sure that I help you create the best title for your book. And not only the best title, but also an amazing book cover for your book. I'm definitely going to be personally helping you. That's actually one of my favorite parts of the whole book process, especially when I'm coaching someone through, is helping them with that book cover. So again, you're going to have me coaching you directly through your book. We talked about those ways for paying for your book. And again, when you sign up for the coaching, I'll actually be helping you develop and handcraft your specific ways that you can approach your sponsors and the people that you want to approach with your book. So I'll be working with you hand in hand, along with other people that I work with to help craft this specifically for you. Then we have some really top-notch for many of you who join the coaching, we have many top-notch public relations persons that help our authors actually get on TV and radio and in the newspaper, and to get books, to get a write-up for your book. Again, all of those things will be services that we'll talk about when you decide to come on board for the coaching. We're also going to talk to you about, or show you how to get speaking engagements around your book. And we talked about creating a business around your book. Very, very important. So again, the coaching part, we're going to go with individually. I work with each one of you individually on how to, again, create a business around your book. And we're going to go through so many more things with that. So now I want to take this time out to personally thank you for joining my webinar. I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing the information with you. And more importantly, I hope that you make a decision today to start working on your book. Again, thank you for joining my webinar. Please sign on to the link that is on your screen. Make sure you sign on and go there and sign up for the coaching. And I look forward to talking with you personally.